He called her his upgrade, the perfect boardroom-ready partner. But the world only started paying attention when the woman he left behind took the stage. If Nicholas truly believed he had upgraded to the perfect boardroom-ready partner, why did the world only start paying attention when the woman he left behind took the stage? The room glittered under 1,000 crystal lights, a storm of flash bulbs, and eager voices swirling around the marble pillars of the Waldorf Astoria ballroom. On this night, one of the most anticipated in New York's cutthroat finance scene, every table boasted a CEO, a senator, or a media mogul. Waiters poured $100 champagne. The very air crackled with power and ambition. Standing at the very center of it all in a custom Tom Ford tuxedo was Nicholas Drake. He was 43, with silver at the temples, and a jaw chiseled from a decade of morning runs and boardroom battles. Tonight, he was the story. The king of Manhattan dealmaking. The rainmaker whose Midas touch had turned half a dozen startups into billion-dollar legends. But tonight, Nicholas wasn't content to merely celebrate his latest acquisition. Tonight, he had something to prove. He clinked his glass for attention. Cameras swiveled. Reporters from the New York Times, Bloomberg, and even Forbes raised their pens. At his side, poised and glowing, stood Camilla Van Buren, a woman as statuesque and polished as the diamond bracelet she wore. The rumor mill had been churning for months. Camilla was more than Nicholas's new love. She was the future of Drake Capital, a business mind with a pedigree to rival anyone in the room. Nicholas, called a young journalist, nearly shouting to be heard above the clatter. What makes Camilla the perfect partner? Is she joining your board? Nicholas didn't hesitate. He smiled, letting the world see the white teeth, the effortless charm. Camilla, she's boardroom ready. The modern business world needs women who can match the men, and she does, every day. I'm lucky to have her by my side. He squeezed her hand for effect. Camilla flashed a smile worthy of Vogue. The reporter nodded, scribbling down the quote that would headline the finance blogs by sunrise. That single line, meant to impress investors and society columnists, would be everywhere by morning. And Nicholas, ever the strategist, thought he'd won. To him, this was his coronation. The woman on his arm was his trophy and his upgrade. His ex-wife was forgotten, left behind like last year's quarterly report. What nobody in the ballroom realized was that Nicholas Drake was about to lose it all. Not his money, but his legacy. Because as he basked in the spotlight, somewhere in a quiet brownstone a few miles away, his ex-wife, Evelyn Taylor, was opening an email that would ignite a storm not even the best PR firm could control. Evelyn, who had once been just the wife, was about to grace the cover of Forbes. Her story would become the headline. Her face, the image that dominated every boardroom and startup Slack channel. By the end of the month, the only name people would be whispering about in tech wasn't Nicholas or Camilla. It was Evelyn Taylor, the invisible woman who built an empire while nobody paid attention. But tonight, that was all in the future. Tonight was Nicholas's night, or so he believed. The orchestra played Sinatra, the chandeliers shimmered, and the world seemed to spin at his command. Yet in the shadows of the gala, alliances were shifting, and secrets were quietly detonating. Camilla, oblivious to the tension brewing beneath the polished surface, mingled with the city's elite. Her laugh was high and practiced, her handshake firm, her gaze cool and calculating. Nicholas liked to show her off, the heiress, the future COO, the woman who could talk EBITDA with the best of them. He didn't notice how many eyes rolled as he steered Camilla from conversation to conversation, or how old friends murmured about Evelyn, his ex, who hadn't been seen in public for months. Because just a year ago, Nicholas and Evelyn had been the it couple. They'd posed together on red carpets, raised millions for children's charities, and traded banter in glossy profiles for Business Insider. Evelyn was quieter, softer, less glamorous than Camilla, but she was the brains behind Nicholas's first tech triumph. Their marriage seemed rock solid, at least from the outside. That illusion shattered the day Nicholas filed for divorce, and even faster when Camilla moved into the spotlight. No one bothered to ask where Evelyn had gone. Most people assumed she'd left New York in shame, that she'd retreated into obscurity, a footnote in the legend of Nicholas Drake. But tonight, as Nicholas delivered his well-rehearsed speech about vision and partnership, Evelyn was far from hiding. She was in her sunlit kitchen reading and rereading a subject line that made her heart race: Forbes cover story, final confirmation. Her new company, an AI platform for STEM education, had just closed a $30 million round led by one of Silicon Valley's most powerful VC funds. She'd signed the term sheet with her daughter, Chloe, coloring beside her. She'd done it without Nicholas, without Drake Capital, and most importantly, without asking anyone's permission. The irony was lost on Nicholas, but it wasn't lost on the city's sharpest insiders. In group chats and closed-door meetings, people whispered about Evelyn's mysterious new startup. There were rumors of a moonshot deal, of anonymous backers, of an ex-wife who'd vanished and returned more powerful than ever. But Nicholas dismissed it all as gossip. In his mind, Evelyn would always be just a housewife. Camilla was the headline act. He had no idea his story was about to be rewritten by the woman he underestimated most. As midnight approached and the toasts died down, Nicholas basked in the glow of his own legend, believing he'd won. But in the very moment his quote about Camilla's boardroom readiness hit Twitter, the editors at Forbes were prepping Evelyn's cover for the printer. The caption read, "The woman Silicon Valley ignored, until she changed the world." Nicholas Drake would wake up the next morning to find himself no longer the king of the business world, but the punchline in his ex-wife's greatest comeback. The story was just beginning. Evelyn Taylor never imagined she'd become invisible. She was 37 years old, a mother of one, and at least in the eyes of the Manhattan elite, simply the ex-wife of Nicholas Drake. The world had reduced her to a single line on the gossip pages: Evelyn, former Mrs. Drake, out of sight since the divorce. But once, not so long ago, Evelyn was the heartbeat of every room she entered. Evelyn grew up in the outskirts of Boston. She was the only child of a single mother who worked 2 jobs and encouraged her daughter to dream as big as the city skyline. She was bookish, curious, and fiercely determined. By 21, she graduated summa cum laude from MIT with a double major in computer science and applied mathematics. By 23, she was already making waves at a small fintech startup in Cambridge. She'd never been the kind of woman who craved the spotlight. She wanted to build things, to create something from nothing, even if nobody was watching. She met Nicholas at a tech conference in San Francisco where she was one of the few women on the main stage. He was instantly smitten, charmed by her quick wit and razor-sharp mind. They married within a year, moving into a tiny Brooklyn apartment with dreams that stretched higher than the Empire State Building. Evelyn coded late into the night, her laptop perched beside empty takeout boxes, while Nicholas sketched out business plans and pitched investors in coffee shops all over the city. For a while, it was magic. They were partners in every sense, equal, collaborative, hungry for the future. They co-founded Drake Solutions together, a software platform that solved a problem no one else could even articulate. Evelyn wrote the code, handled the data, and kept the team afloat through 3 pivots and 2 near bankruptcies. Nicholas worked the rooms, won over investors, and handled the PR. Their daughter Chloe was born just weeks after the company landed its first $1 million client. Evelyn balanced motherhood and management like a tightrope walker, rocking Chloe to sleep with one hand and typing out code with the other. Every milestone was celebrated with cheap wine and Chinese takeout. Every setback was met with a vow to try harder, to be better. But success changed everything. When Drake Solutions went public, Nicholas became the star. The press wanted his story, not hers. Venture capitalists asked for him, not her. Suddenly, Evelyn's name was erased from the company history. Her contributions were reduced to footnotes or, sometimes, ignored completely. "I'm just better at the public side," Nicholas would say, justifying the spotlight. "You're the real genius, I just make it all look good." At first, Evelyn told herself it didn't matter. She had Chloe. She had her work. She was happy letting Nicholas chase fame while she handled the reality. But over time, the cracks began to show. Nicholas's ego grew with every magazine cover and every fawning interview. He became impatient, dismissive, obsessed with optics. At home, he snapped at Evelyn for not being ambitious enough, for not dressing the part, for not understanding how things worked at the top. He started traveling more, staying out later, coming home with new cologne and stories that never quite added up. Evelyn tried to hold their world together for Chloe's sake. She played the role of the perfect wife at galas and board meetings, nodding politely as Nicholas boasted about his latest deals. She baked cupcakes for school events and scheduled playdates with other power moms, even though she often felt like an outsider among them. Her heart ached every time Nicholas introduced her as Chloe's mom or the brains behind my first company, like she was just another employee he could thank and forget. The final blow came on their 12th anniversary. Nicholas, distracted by a phone call with a hedge fund manager, forgot dinner entirely. Evelyn waited at the candlelit table for hours, a simple blue dress hugging her frame, Chloe's drawing set at his place. When he finally arrived, he tossed a manila envelope onto the table. Inside were divorce papers. "It's for the best," he said, not meeting her eyes. "We want different things. Camila understands my world." Just like that, Evelyn was erased. In the months that followed, she faded from the headlines. Nicholas's engagement to Camila made the rounds on every social feed, a parade of perfect images and boardroom-ready smiles. Chloe, confused and hurting, bounced between two homes. Evelyn sold her share in Drake Solutions, her own company, her own code, for a sum that seemed enormous but felt like an insult. Friends drifted away, not sure which side to take, or whether Evelyn even wanted to stay in New York. For a while, she let herself grieve. She let herself become small. She wore simple jeans and t-shirts, shopped at the corner bodega, and walked Chloe to school every day. No more galas, no more power lunches, no more magazine covers. She did the one thing no one expected her to do. She disappeared. But in the quiet, something began to shift. Evelyn remembered the thrill of building, the satisfaction of solving impossible problems. She saw a gap in the world, a space where her skills, her heart, and her pain could make something new. She started sketching ideas on napkins, coding late at night after Chloe went to sleep, just like she had all those years ago. She wasn't just a housewife. She wasn't the ex. She wasn't a supporting character in Nicholas's story. She was Evelyn Taylor. And she was about to take back her narrative in a way the world would never forget. The annual Women in Innovation Gala at the Caraway Hotel was more than just a charity event. It was the one night each year when the future of Manhattan's business world gathered under one roof. If you wanted to make a deal, get your photo snapped for the Wall Street Journal, or simply watch the drama of high society play out in real time, this was the only place to be. The Caraway was pure old money luxury, perched on Fifth Avenue with views of the city's pulsing heart. Its ballroom stretched nearly a block, with walls adorned with Art Deco gold and marble pillars rising to ceilings etched with hand-painted constellations. Overhead, chandeliers glittered with the fire of 1,000 crystals, illuminating a sea of the city's most powerful players. Every detail was designed for spectacle, from the black-tie waiters who swept by with truffle canapes to the VIP-only lounges where rumors and alliances were made. Tonight, the ballroom buzzed with an extra dose of excitement. Not only was Nicholas Drake's latest climate tech deal the talk of the night, but for the first time, the media had been given access to nearly every corner. Journalists hustled between tables, microphones in hand, snapping photos of every power move and whispered conversation. The main event was a live interview on stage with Nicholas and Camila, set to be streamed to thousands across the world. Nicholas arrived with a flourish. He made a point of greeting every major player in the room, from the mayor to the CEO of a rival venture firm. His tuxedo was sharp, his smile practiced, his every move calculated to maximize his presence. At his side, Camila glided in a sleek silver gown, her posture perfect, her every gesture choreographed to impress. Their table, front and center with a direct view of the stage, was surrounded by the city's elite. Camera flashes followed their every step. Meanwhile, at the far edge of the ballroom, almost hidden behind a pillar, Evelyn Taylor sat at a much less glamorous table. To most, she was just another member of the event's tech team, tasked with managing the live stream and making sure nothing glitched during Nicholas's speech. She wore simple black slacks and a navy blouse, her hair in a low ponytail, a badge on her lapel that read, "Event Staff." Her phone buzzed with messages from her startup team, a bug to fix, a server to restart, a last-minute investor question to answer. She barely noticed the commotion around Nicholas. She was used to blending in. Still, every so often, she'd catch a glimpse of the man she'd once built an empire with, and the pang of betrayal would flare, hot and sharp. At her table, she was joined by 3 other women in black event polos, all too busy troubleshooting audio feeds and HDMI cables to notice the social theater unfolding on the ballroom floor. The guests, meanwhile, were in their element. The head of Drake Capital toasted old friends and scouted new talent. Startup founders hustled, eager to slide their business cards into the right hands. PR execs watched the crowd with hawk-like eyes, searching for any moment that could go viral. The mayor, flanked by security, worked the room with the confidence of someone who knew her next re-election depended on these very people. A famous news anchor sipped bourbon by the grand piano, ready to report on the night's triumphs and scandals. Evelyn's only solace was that here in the shadows, nobody cared who she was. She could just do her job, answer texts from Chloe's babysitter, and hope the night passed without incident. But there was a hum in the air tonight, a sense that something was about to happen. A new sponsor had just signed on for Evelyn's startup, pushing their funding round into the headlines. A rumor was spreading among the tech insiders. "Did you hear about the ex-Mrs. Drake? Word is she's building something huge." Most people laughed it off. Others watched the tech table with growing interest. Nicholas, oblivious to any buzz that wasn't about him, took the stage with Camila for the live interview. He opened with a joke about his upgraded partnership, drawing forced laughs from the audience. Camila fielded questions about women in leadership with practiced poise, careful to mention her family's foundation and her long-standing commitment to empowering young women. The audience ate it up. Nicholas's jaw tightened ever so slightly whenever Camila strayed from his script, but nobody else seemed to notice. Backstage, Evelyn was quietly working a miracle of her own. She was monitoring the event servers, solving a security hiccup that could have crashed the whole live stream. She responded to a frantic investor's email with a steady hand. No one thanked her. No one even looked her way. At the height of the evening, the Forbes editors in attendance received a ping on their phones. Evelyn Taylor's startup had just landed the magazine's next cover. The embargo would lift at midnight. Photos of Evelyn, smiling, confident, with Chloe perched on her hip, were queued and ready to roll out across the globe. Still, Evelyn remained in the background, watching Nicholas and Camila soak up the applause. She remembered nights like this when she'd stood at Nicholas's side, the crowd cheering their dynamic duo. Now she was invisible, but she was also free. And as the clock ticked toward midnight, she felt a strange calm wash over her. Across the room, Nicholas leaned into the mic. "Tonight is about the future, about women who are truly boardroom ready." He shot Camila a winning smile. The crowd clapped on cue. The orchestra swelled. And somewhere in the shadows, Evelyn Taylor prepared for the moment that would rewrite her story forever. No one in that dazzling ballroom suspected the woman behind the screens was about to become the story of the year. By sunrise, her name would be everywhere, and nothing in this golden palace of power would ever be the same. Nicholas Drake didn't always look like the villain. In the earliest days of his career, people used words like visionary and self-made to describe him. He had that special brand of charisma that could make a room lean in, a hungry gleam in his eye that made backers believe he could bend the market to his will. But somewhere along the way, power and the need to always be at the top changed Nicholas. What started as pure drive slowly warped into ruthless ambition, then into something colder. When Evelyn first fell in love with him, she saw that drive as their shared spark. She didn't see the cracks forming, not until it was too late. After their first company went public and Nicholas became a name on CNBC, he began to move differently. He stopped listening to Evelyn's advice, choosing instead the counsel of people who told him exactly what he wanted to hear. When she raised questions about risky acquisitions or hiring friends over qualified candidates, he'd shut her down. "Let me handle the business side, Ev," he'd say, as if she hadn't written the code for their product from scratch. "You're great with details, but you don't see the big picture." Nicholas became obsessed with appearances. He started skipping family dinners for last-minute networking drinks and coming home long after Chloe was in bed. If Evelyn asked where he'd been, he'd accuse her of not supporting his vision. He started buying clothes that cost more than their mortgage and hosting parties for people who didn't know Chloe's birthday but knew every inch of their Hamptons estate. Evelyn noticed the first real sign of betrayal at a tech awards gala 2 years before the divorce. Nicholas spent the evening in a whispered conversation with Camilla Van Buren, the daughter of a Fortune 100 board member and a regular on the society pages. Camilla was everything Nicholas wanted the world to see: tall, blonde, educated at Stanford, fluent in Mandarin and boardroom strategy. Evelyn felt invisible as she watched them laughing together at the open bar, his wedding ring flashing as he brushed a stray hair from Camilla's shoulder. The tabloid headlines the next day read, "Drake's new muse." The rumors were always denied, but the truth was growing more obvious by the day. Camilla, for her part, had learned to spot opportunity in any room. Born to a family that had never struggled for anything, she was groomed for power. From private schools to Ivy League business programs, Camilla collected titles and connections the way other girls collected jewelry. By her mid-20s, she had interned at 2 hedge funds and shadowed her father at board meetings across 3 continents. She understood the rules of the game: be useful, be dazzling, be indispensable to the right man. When Nicholas took an interest, Camilla played coy. She let him chase, flattering his ego while never letting him think he was truly in control. She made herself vital to his business, not by working late, but by making introductions, securing new investors, and providing the kind of social cachet Nicholas craved. She even started appearing in the office as a consultant, a title that required no actual work but allowed her to float from meeting to meeting, always in a new designer suit. Nicholas, drunk on the newness of it all, began introducing Camilla at events as his future partner. "She gets business," he'd whisper to colleagues. "She's not just a pretty face." His closest friends, the ones who'd known him and Evelyn as a team, watched in silent discomfort as he slid farther away from the man he used to be. When Camilla moved into Nicholas's penthouse just a week after Evelyn left, it confirmed every rumor in the city. What stung most for Evelyn wasn't that Nicholas had moved on. It was how easily he rewrote their story, acting as if she'd been holding him back for years, as if all the late nights, all the sacrifices, all the dreams she'd helped him build had been nothing but a stepping stone for his real upgrade. He started giving interviews that erased her entirely. "I wouldn't be where I am without great partnerships," he told Business Week, always careful not to say her name. "Camilla understands the kind of pressure I face at the top. She's boardroom ready. That's what I need." Whenever someone mentioned Evelyn, Nicholas would shrug it off. "She's great with Chloe, but we just wanted different things." Camilla, meanwhile, relished her new role. She thrived on the attention and enjoyed the whispered envy of Manhattan's elite. She became the new face of Drake Capital, posing for magazine shoots with Nicholas and sitting in on deals she barely understood. Behind closed doors, she pushed Nicholas to cut ties with old friends, to move their money into flashier, riskier ventures, to host more and more extravagant parties. The staff who once adored Evelyn learned to keep quiet, their loyalty shifting with the tide. But in her ambition, Camilla missed what made Evelyn different. She had never faced real hardship. She never knew what it felt like to be counted out, to be called too soft, too quiet, or not enough. Camilla thought her battle was with Nicholas's past. She didn't see the quiet storm building in Evelyn. She didn't sense that her greatest threat was the woman she'd already dismissed. As the Women in Innovation Gala wore on, Camilla smiled for the cameras, Nicholas held court at their table, and the world seemed to confirm what they both believed. The old chapter was closed. But in the corner, Evelyn Taylor, the real architect of everything Nicholas ever built, was preparing to show them what a real comeback looked like. The betrayal didn't happen quietly. It was as public as it gets, a display that turned the grand ballroom into a coliseum and Evelyn into unintentional prey. It started the moment Nicholas took the stage for his much-hyped interview, arm in arm with Camilla. The crowd leaned forward, glasses raised, phones discreetly recording. He'd done this 100 times before, charmed a room, set the narrative, made himself the story. But tonight, he wanted more. He wanted to cement his new reality, to show the world that his past with Evelyn was not just over, but irrelevant. As Nicholas's name was announced, the band played a triumphant note and the lights swiveled to the stage. He smiled, a performer stepping into his favorite role. Camilla followed, poised, every inch the corporate power couple's vision. The MC offered a microphone and barely got out, "Congratulations on your engagement," before Nicholas jumped in, his voice booming. "Thank you. I'm thrilled. And I want to make something clear. Camilla isn't just my fiancée. She's boardroom-ready. She's a force in her own right. And she's about to help take Drake Capital to heights we've never imagined." He glanced down, his hand finding Camilla's as cameras flashed and the crowd broke into orchestrated applause. Evelyn watched it unfold from the tech table, the words searing into her memory. In the glow of 100 camera flashes, Nicholas put the spotlight on Camilla and cast a shadow on everything before her. But the moment that burned deepest came just minutes later when a journalist from Forbes, recognizing Evelyn by the AV booth, called out a question that cut through the noise. "Nicholas, what about your ex-wife? She co-founded your first company. Any thoughts on her future?" The air shifted. Nicholas barely missed a beat. "Evelyn's a wonderful mother and was a good partner in the early days," he replied, smiling with just enough politeness to seem gracious. "But I've always said I need someone who matches me at the highest level. The world's changed. I need a partner who belongs at the table, not just behind a computer screen. That's why I'm lucky to have Camilla. We're building a legacy together." The crowd tittered. Camilla squeezed his hand. A few people shot glances toward the tech table where Evelyn sat stone still, her cheeks burning. It was a public erasure, an insult wrapped in a compliment delivered by the man who owed her everything. She wanted to shrink into her chair, to run out the side door and disappear into the New York night. But she didn't move. She watched. She memorized every detail. The humiliation didn't end there. Later, as Nicholas and Camilla wove through the crowd shaking hands, a cluster of young tech founders, people who used to seek Evelyn's advice, whispered behind their hands, "Did you hear what he said? She must be dying inside." A socialite in a red gown remarked loudly to her friend, "I'd be mortified. No wonder she hides behind the curtains." He traded up. The headlines hit Twitter within minutes. "Drake, I need a boardroom-ready woman. Meet Camilla, the future of Manhattan tech." Nicholas Drake's ex erased from his narrative. Wonderful mother, but not boardroom material. Evelyn's phone vibrated with texts from acquaintances and old friends. "Are you okay? Don't let it get to you. He's always been an ass. I can't believe he'd say that about you in public." But she ignored every message. All she could hear were Nicholas's words echoing in her mind. By the end of the night, the story was everywhere. The investor she'd been quietly courting now saw her name attached to a narrative of being left behind. Even Chloe's teacher texted a message of support, "Saw the news. Chloe is a star just like you. Hang in there." Evelyn's heart ached, not for herself, but for the future her daughter might have to navigate, forever tied to Nicholas's version of the story. The world seemed to move on, swept away by the next photo op, the next dramatic reveal. Nicholas and Camila posed for magazine covers and gossipy TikTok reels, their image polished and unblemished. Evelyn was left with the memory of her own erasure. An ex-wife, a good partner in the early days, a woman supposedly too ordinary to keep up. But as she left the ballroom that night, Evelyn didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't beg anyone to see her side. Instead, she walked through the lobby head held high and hailed a cab home. In the dark silence of her apartment, she let herself feel the sting of betrayal and humiliation. She let the pain wash over her in waves. She hugged Chloe a little tighter, whispered that everything would be okay, and stared out at the skyline that once symbolized all her dreams. Something changed in Evelyn that night. She realized she'd spent too long letting other people decide her story. Nicholas had humiliated her in public, thinking it would make him look strong. But as she closed her eyes, another truth formed, a vow, quiet but fierce. She would never, ever let herself be erased again. And as dawn broke over Manhattan, the very city that had watched her humiliation would soon bear witness to her rebirth. The humiliation didn't fade after the gala. If anything, it grew sharper with each sunrise. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn's world shrank to the size of her apartment. She avoided the news. She left texts unread, letting the phone vibrate until it ran out of battery. She blocked notifications, closed the blinds, and let her coffee go cold. Every morning, Evelyn felt herself slipping into old doubts. Every cruel word Nicholas had tossed at her was now echoing on a loop in her mind. Not boardroom material. Just a mother. Can't keep up. Each phrase chipped away at her confidence, a relentless drumbeat that made her question everything, her talent, her intelligence, her very worth. She replayed the night of the gala over and over. Had she really been that invisible? Was all the work she'd poured into Drake Solutions, all the late nights and big ideas, really worth nothing? Chloe noticed first. The 7-year-old watched her mother with worried eyes, seeing the sadness in her slumped shoulders, the way she stared out the window for hours, lost in thought. "Mommy, are you sick?" Chloe asked one afternoon, her small hand slipping into Evelyn's. "You don't smile anymore." Evelyn tried to force a smile. "I'm just tired, honey," she lied, tucking a strand of Chloe's hair behind her ear. "It's been a hard week." But the week turned into a month. Evelyn let her startup team handle calls without her. She missed 2 pitch meetings, then a third. The CTO, worried, left a voicemail. "Ev, we need you. Investors are asking for you by name. We can't do this without you." Evelyn let the message play and then deleted it. She didn't believe them. She barely believed in herself. On the day she did leave the apartment, Evelyn kept her head down. She wore sunglasses and old jeans, hoping not to be recognized by anyone from the tech world. But New York was small, especially the corner of it that lived and breathed startups. At the grocery store, she overheard 2 women whispering, "That's her, right? Nicholas Drake's ex-wife. I heard she couldn't handle the pressure." She rushed home, her face burning. In the elevator, she wondered if maybe they were right. At night, the apartment felt too quiet. Chloe was asleep, her gentle breathing the only sound in the dark. Evelyn would sit on the edge of her bed, knees drawn to her chest, and cry quietly, careful not to wake her daughter. She wanted to be strong for Chloe, but inside she felt broken, cracked wide open, every wound exposed. She stopped coding. She let her notebook gather dust. She wondered if maybe Nicholas was right. Maybe she really was too soft for this world. One afternoon, a bouquet arrived at her door. Lilies and white roses tied with a crisp blue ribbon. The card read, "Thinking of you. Don't let the bastards win. Maggie." Maggie was her oldest friend, a fellow MIT grad, now the CTO of a robotics firm. Evelyn hadn't seen her in months. She let the flowers sit on the counter, too numb even to put them in water. That night, the isolation became too much. She found herself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, eyes swollen from crying, hair tangled from days spent in bed. "What are you doing?" she whispered to her reflection. "You're letting him win. You're letting them all win." But even as the thought crossed her mind, she felt another wave of exhaustion wash over her. She climbed back into bed, pulling the covers over her head, and let the darkness close in. The next morning, the school called. Chloe had forgotten her lunch. Evelyn scrambled, guilt burning in her chest, and ran it down to the office in her slippers. The secretary looked at her with a mixture of pity and concern. "Are you all right, Mrs. Taylor?" she asked quietly. "I'm fine," Evelyn replied, her voice barely more than a whisper. She wasn't fine. She was unraveling. That evening, Chloe brought home a drawing from school. It was a picture of Evelyn standing tall on a stage, a cape fluttering behind her. "You're a superhero, Mommy," Chloe said, beaming. "You always help everyone." Evelyn almost broke. The weight of Chloe's faith, so innocent, so absolute, brought fresh tears to her eyes. She hugged her daughter tightly, burying her face in Chloe's hair. She wished she could believe it. But the doubts, the shame, the sense of failure, it all felt too heavy to lift. Late that night, after Chloe was asleep, Evelyn sat alone in the kitchen, the city lights blinking through the window. She opened her laptop, heart pounding, and logged into her company Slack for the first time in weeks. Messages flooded in. "Ev, are you okay? We need you. You're the reason we started this. Please come back." She stared at the screen, hands shaking. For the first time since the gala, she let herself remember all she'd built, all she'd overcome. The pain was still there, raw and sharp. But somewhere underneath, a tiny spark flickered. A memory surfaced, the first line of code she'd ever written, the feeling of creation, of turning nothing into something. She missed that feeling. She missed being needed, being valued, being herself. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But this time, they weren't only for the hurt. They were for the small, stubborn hope that maybe she wasn't done yet. Maybe, just maybe, she could rise. As dawn crept over Manhattan, Evelyn made a decision. She wasn't ready to fight, not yet. But she wasn't ready to disappear either. This breakdown, this heartbreak, was just the middle of her story. The end, she'd write that herself. Evelyn didn't sleep much that night. After finally opening her laptop and reading the flood of messages from her team, she sat in the soft glow of the kitchen, heart pounding, staring at her own reflection in the window. She was tired, bone tired, but something had shifted inside her. She wasn't sure it was hope, not yet, but maybe it was the start of a fight. She made a decision. She would show up to her next meeting, even if her voice shook and her hands trembled. She owed it to her team. She owed it to Chloe. Mostly, she owed it to herself, to the woman she used to be, the woman who'd built code out of nothing, who used to believe she could do anything. That morning, Evelyn dressed with more care than usual. She put on a navy sweater, brushed her hair, and added a hint of mascara. She dropped Chloe off at school, then took a deep breath, and walked to the tiny co-working office she'd been quietly renting in the Flatiron district. The city felt sharper than usual, horns blaring, people striding with purpose. She blended in, anonymous, free from the weight of Nicholas's reputation for the first time in weeks. The office was empty, except for her lead engineer, a young woman named Priya, who jumped up from her laptop the moment Evelyn walked in. "You're here." Priya's eyes sparkled. "We were worried. The team's meeting on Zoom in 10 minutes. Everyone wants to see you." Evelyn forced a smile and nodded, settling in at her desk. She booted up her laptop, heart hammering, and clicked into the video meeting. Her entire team, scattered across 4 countries, popped onto the screen, their faces hopeful and nervous. She cleared her throat. "Hey everyone. Sorry I've been absent. I just wanted to say thank you for keeping things going. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." There was a moment of silence, and then the chat exploded with cheers and heart emojis. Her CTO, a stoic coder from Toronto, smiled for the first time since she'd known him. "We knew you'd come back, Evelyn. You always do." They dove into updates. As they spoke, Evelyn felt something return, a sense of purpose, of belonging. The product was gaining traction. The new education platform was being piloted in 3 school districts. Investors were reaching out. One of the world's top foundations wanted a call that week. The Forbes profile was still embargoed, but the buzz was building behind the scenes. After the call, Evelyn's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. For a moment, she almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Hello." A crisp female voice responded. "Ms. Taylor, this is Elise Harper from Forbes. I know it's early, but I wanted to let you know our editors have moved up the cover launch to next week. The feature on your company will go live Monday morning. I wanted to give you a heads up. The reception has been incredible. Your work is changing the game." Evelyn froze, disbelief and anxiety warring inside her. "Thank you," she managed, gripping the desk. "We'd like you to keynote our Women Empower Summit next month," Elise continued. "And one more thing, would you be open to doing a video interview? The response to your story has been overwhelming, especially after Nicholas's recent remarks. People are hungry for your side." Evelyn almost laughed. Her side. The world had never wanted it before. "I'll do it," she said softly. "Thank you." She hung up, breathless. This was it, the turning point. But the universe had one more surprise. That afternoon, as she left the office, she ran into an old friend from MIT, Rosa Gutierrez, now a senior partner at a top venture capital firm. Rosa hugged her fiercely. "I saw the rumors. I knew it was you behind that company. Listen, my fund wants in. We'll lead your Series B. No questions asked. We believe in you. And if you ever want backup for the public stuff, legal, PR, whatever, you call me." Evelyn blinked back tears. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone on her side, someone who'd known her before she was Nicholas's wife, before she was a headline or a footnote. On her way home, she stopped at the bakery Chloe loved, picking up cupcakes with blue sprinkles. She walked slower than usual, letting the city air fill her lungs. For the first time in months, she didn't feel like she was running away. She was moving forward. That evening, after dinner, Chloe danced around the kitchen with a cupcake in each hand. Evelyn sat at the table, laptop open, the Forbes draft pulled up on the screen. The headline still stunned her, from "Just a Wife" to STEM Superstar, Evelyn Taylor's second act. The article told the real story, how she built the company, how she battled bias and heartbreak, how she'd kept going when no one was watching. Evelyn read the last lines aloud, her voice shaking. Sometimes the most powerful woman in the room is the one nobody notices, until she changes everything. She glanced at Chloe, who was watching her now, eyes wide with pride. "Mommy, are you famous?" Evelyn smiled, feeling the answer settle somewhere deep inside her. "I'm getting there, sweetheart. I'm getting there." It was just the beginning. The world thought Nicholas's story was the one to watch. But now, Evelyn held the cards. She had proof. She had a platform. And she had the one thing Nicholas and Camila never expected, an entire army of girls and women rooting for her comeback. As the city lights glimmered outside, Evelyn closed her laptop, wiped away the last tears, and let herself feel the power of a secret finally ready for daylight. When Evelyn woke up the next morning, something felt different. For the first time in ages, she didn't dread facing the day. She stood by the window, bathed in soft sunlight, and watched the city hum to life beneath her. The doubt and anxiety hadn't disappeared, but they'd been joined by something fiercer: resolve. It was time to take her power back. After dropping Chloe off at school, Evelyn took a detour to the Upper East Side and walked into the kind of salon she once thought was only for women like Camila. She asked for a cut that was bold and fresh, nothing conservative or safe. When she looked in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize the woman staring back, strong, sophisticated, with eyes that sparkled again. She bought herself a new navy blazer, tailored jeans, and a pair of shoes that made her stand taller. She let herself enjoy the transformation, the sense of renewal. This wasn't about impressing Nicholas or anyone else. It was about reminding herself who she really was. At home, she sorted through her closet, boxing up the clothes that made her feel small, drab, or hidden. She donated everything that reminded her of the life she left behind. She set up her workspace by the window, brought in a plant, and pinned Chloe's superhero drawing on the wall, her own personal logo of resilience. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was building something just for her. Her inbox was flooded. Forbes wanted new photos for the cover. 2 podcasts requested interviews. A television network wanted her on a panel about women in tech. Rose's venture capital firm sent over documents for the Series B funding, their confidence in Evelyn's vision turning into real, tangible momentum. Her team, energized by her return, set up back-to-back meetings with school districts and international partners. That afternoon, she stood in front of her closet, considering what to wear for her first TV spot. No more, just a wife outfits. She chose a fitted blouse and her new blazer, pairing them with red lipstick and the gold necklace her mother gave her after she graduated from MIT. Looking in the mirror, she saw herself not as someone's ex or a cautionary tale, but as the CEO she was always meant to be. Evelyn's mindset shifted, too. The fear of Nicholas's shadow faded. She stopped worrying about his next move or Camila's next headline. Instead, she focused on what she could control: her company, her story, her daughter's happiness. She spent evenings planning product rollouts, chatting with her team late into the night, and sketching ideas on her kitchen table as Chloe curled up beside her. She even took Chloe shopping for a superhero dress and let her choose a sparkly cape. "We're both superheroes now," Chloe said, spinning in the living room. Evelyn laughed and hugged her close, realizing just how much she'd been missing, how much joy was left for her to claim. Her first public appearance since the gala was at the Women Empower Summit, just days after the Forbes cover dropped. Evelyn's story had already started trending. "From boardroom ghost to STEM queen," read one headline. The ballroom was packed with investors, educators, journalists, and women of every age and background. Evelyn arrived early, nerves jangling, but chin held high. As she walked in, the room seemed to pause. People recognized her instantly. Some applauded, others whispered. She made her way to the green room, shaking hands with fellow speakers, each woman sharing a story of struggle and comeback. When her name was called, Evelyn stepped onto the stage. The spotlight was hot on her face. But instead of shrinking, she felt herself expand. She shared the truth, the erasure, the heartbreak, the humiliation, and the decision to start again. She spoke about the power of being underestimated, about the thousands of girls who needed to see a different kind of success story. She challenged the industry to stop looking for boardroom-ready women and start supporting those already in the room, whether anyone saw them or not. The response was electric. Attendees rose to their feet, giving her a standing ovation. The Forbes editor who championed her story hugged her backstage, whispering, "You changed the conversation tonight." Investors lined up to meet her. School administrators asked for her card. Young women stopped her to say, "You made me believe I could do it, too." That night, she celebrated not with champagne at a stuffy bar, but with Chloe, eating pizza on their living room floor and watching old cartoons. The phone buzzed with new messages, congratulations, partnership offers, even apologies from people who once dismissed her. She felt a lightness she hadn't known in years. Evelyn knew there would be more challenges. There would always be critics, doubters, and days when the past threatened to creep in. But she also knew she'd built something stronger than regret. She'd become her own headline, her own force of nature. She wasn't just a wife. She wasn't a background player in Nicholas's narrative. She was Evelyn Taylor, CEO, innovator, and mother. She had reinvented herself from the ground up. This was her new power, and this time, she wasn't letting anyone take it away. The Forbes cover launch was more than a milestone. It was the moment Manhattan's elite finally learned Evelyn Taylor's name. It wasn't just a magazine on a newsstand. It was a giant, high-resolution image projected on every wall of the Bryant Center, the exclusive venue chosen for the Women Who Lead gala. RSVPs had arrived from senators, Silicon Valley VCs, global CEOs, tech journalists, and to Evelyn's private amusement, even Nicholas and Camilla. The city buzzed about it for days in advance. Will she show? Is the ex-husband coming? Who is this woman who went from background to billionaire? The rumors ran wild. The stakes for Evelyn were personal. She wanted to be seen, not as someone's ex-wife, but as the architect of her own life. It was time for the world to know her not as a side note, but as the headline. Evelyn arrived early, holding Chloe's hand as they walked through the velvet ropes. Camera flashes began at the curb, reporters clamoring to snap her first public red carpet photo. She wore a striking blue dress, Chloe in matching sparkles beside her. And this time, Evelyn did not look for Nicholas in the crowd. She focused on her daughter, her team, and the women around her whose stories had also been silenced and overlooked. Inside, the room was transformed. The magazine's cover beamed across a massive LED screen, Evelyn Taylor, the rise of tech's new queenmaker. Below it, a quote, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find your voice." The MC kicked off the gala, speaking about resilience, innovation, and women who refused to stay silent. There was a flurry of introductions, applause, and polite laughter, but the real tension built as the evening's main event approached, Evelyn's keynote, followed by the official unveiling of the Forbes cover. Nicholas and Camilla arrived late, making a show of working the room. Nicholas's suit was as sharp as ever, but his smile was brittle. He glanced at the giant screen and for the first time, realized he wasn't the star of the night. Camilla clung to his arm, scanning the crowd for familiar faces, her confidence wavering as whispers circled. It was impossible to miss the shift. People who once orbited Nicholas now gathered around Evelyn. Investors asked for her insight. Journalists requested interviews. Women from across industries stopped her to say, "Thank you. You made us believe we could win, too." When Evelyn took the stage, the ballroom went silent. She spoke not of revenge, but of rebirth. She told her story, the sleepless nights, the heartbreak, the erasure. She spoke of starting over, of building something from nothing, of finding purpose in failure. She gave credit to her team, her daughter, and to the women whose invisible work builds empires every day. Then came the public moment that changed everything. After her speech, the MC invited Evelyn, Nicholas, and Camilla to the stage for a legacy moment. Nicholas stepped forward, forcing a smile. "Congratulations, Evelyn," he said, his voice barely hiding the strain. "Who would have thought?" Evelyn looked him in the eye, steady and unafraid. "You should have," she replied softly, the audience catching every word. "You saw me work beside you for 10 years. You just didn't want to share the credit." A wave of murmurs swept the room. Camilla shifted uncomfortably, her grip on Nicholas tightening. A Forbes journalist took the mic. "Nicholas, last month you said you needed a boardroom-ready partner. Now Evelyn is on our cover. How does that feel?" Nicholas hesitated, his usual charm faltering. "I'm proud of Evelyn. She, surprised us all." Evelyn smiled, gentle but unyielding. "The lesson here isn't about surprise, Nicholas. It's about what happens when women stop asking for permission." The room erupted in applause. Cameras caught Nicholas's stunned face, Camilla's frozen smile, and Evelyn's calm strength. Afterward, as guests mingled, Nicholas tried to approach Evelyn. This time, she wasn't waiting for his validation. She stood surrounded by her new allies, VCs, educators, founders, women she'd inspired. Nicholas reached out, only to find himself outside the circle, a spectator in a story he no longer controlled. Evelyn turned, nodded politely, and introduced him to a group of rising female CEOs. "They're changing the industry, Nicholas. You should get to know them." It was a passing of the torch, subtle but undeniable. The night went viral. Videos of Evelyn's speech topped social media. The ex-wife who outshined the billionaire trended on Twitter and TikTok. Emails flooded in, offers, collaborations, media requests. Young women shared stories of quitting toxic jobs, starting side hustles, and refusing to be minimized. Evelyn didn't celebrate at a fancy bar or after-party. She went home with Chloe, ate ice cream in their pajamas, and watched cartoons until they both fell asleep. By morning, her inbox overflowed, but this time, she didn't feel overwhelmed. She felt ready. Evelyn Taylor had taken her story back. The world had watched her rise, not from Nicholas's shadow, but from her own power. And for the first time, she realized revenge wasn't about hurting someone else. It was about proving to herself, and to the world, that she'd never been just a wife. She was always enough. Years later, the city looked different from Evelyn's corner office. Drake Capital had been acquired after a series of failed ventures, its name fading into a footnote of business history. Nicholas and Camilla had quietly moved overseas, their boardroom-ready partnership unable to withstand the weight of public irrelevance. But Evelyn rarely thought of them. Her own world was too full, too vibrant. Her company was a global leader in educational technology, and her foundation had sent thousands of girls to college for STEM degrees. Tonight, she wasn't looking at spreadsheets or market reports. She was watching Chloe, now a teenager, confidently explaining her science fair project to a panel of judges, one of whom was Evelyn herself. Chloe won first place. As they walked home under the glittering Manhattan sky, Chloe squeezed her mother's hand. "Mom, when I grow up, I want to build things that matter. Just like you." In that moment, Evelyn knew she had won the only thing that ever truly mattered. It wasn't about revenge or magazine covers. It was about building a legacy of strength, resilience, and love for the daughter who had been her reason all along. She had not only rewritten her own story, she had given her daughter the power to write an even better one. Her comeback was complete, not because the world finally saw her, but because she had finally, completely, seen herself. Evelyn's story reminds us that our worth is never defined by someone else's opinion. It's a testament to the power of resilience, and proof that sometimes, being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have. You don't need a seat at their table. You have the power to build your own. If her journey inspired you, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribing to our channel for more stories of triumph. Tell us in the comments below about a time you had to rewrite your own story. We would love to hear it. Thank you for watching, and remember, your narrative is yours to write.